Welcome to the Guitar Channel. I am super happy to welcome you a new interview. I am with the one and only Teddy Kumpel, live from Paris. Teddy, how are you doing? Well?
I'm doing very well. Thank you very much.
How was the show yesterday night with Joe Jackson?
Oh, man. I mean, the Olympia, it's a legendary venue. 2,000 people sold out.
Okay.
It was rocking.
Okay.
Joe was on fire. The band sounded great. We were all pumped up, and yeah,
Okay.
it was fun.
Excellent. I have this traditional first question, Teddy. What was your first guitar?
My first guitar, wow. Well, if you go all the way back, my first guitar was a baritone ukulele that had no name on the headstock. It was my father's. I was probably 3 when I picked it up. And yeah,
Okay.
there you go.
And you upgraded a bit later from 4 strings to 6?
I upgraded to have the lower 2 strings.
Okay.
I think that was a Laurie classical guitar from Sam Goody, the record store in New York.
Okay. Okay. And if you have to pick the main turning points in your career between that very first instrument and the show last night, a couple of key moments. I don't know, encounters, important dates, and so on.
I don't know if I can pinpoint any certain exact turning points. I would say, well, that's an interesting question.
Thank you.
I'm going to figure out how to answer that. I suppose one turning point was when I was 13 and I decided I was going to be a professional guitar player, and I told my parents.
Okay.
And they didn't want to have anything to do with that. They decided that was probably not a good idea for me, but which gave me extra impetus to become a professional guitar player.
And you woke up someday saying, "Okay, I want to be a guitar player. That's what I want to do."
When I was 13, I think I was reading Guitar Player magazine a lot and like fantasizing about what to do with my life as a kid, you know. And I played guitar all the time, and I was getting pretty good at it. So.
Okay. And what kind of training did you get? No training at all, self-taught completely, or?
Well, my opinion is that everybody is self-taught in some way, right? You have to be responsible for your own education.
True.
In terms of how you're going to come up. But I was very lucky to have a extremely talented mother who plays classical piano and church organ with the feet and everything. That's pretty scary. And also my father played Broadway show tunes and sang all my whole childhood. So we had music in the family the whole time, and I was lucky enough to be in a elementary school that had a really strong music program. So we had band, and I played saxophone, I played drums, I played trombone, cello, all kinds of things. This is like 11 years old. Nice. They just let me try anything I wanted.
While still playing a bit of the guitar, or you were still undecided at where you wanted to go?
Guitar was always there. It was like my go-to instrument, but they didn't have a guitar program in the school, so I just kind of learned everything else, and that's how I learned how to read music is from playing saxophone, really, and concert band. Education-wise, then I had a classical guitar teacher when I was 10 for about 2 years. Then I had a really, really great electric guitar teacher named Richard Rapiton in my hometown who taught me pretty much everything I needed to know. Then I went to University of Miami.
Okay.
I studied with Steve Kahn for a little while. I took a couple of lessons with Mick Goodrick. That's about it. Yeah.
And so you knew very early that you wanted to become a professional musician, but did you have a specific idea or where you wanted to go, to be a solo musician, to be accompanying big stars, or be in a band? Or
I think early on I was attracted to being a studio musician and being able to do anything. That's sort of my personality early on in my life, was like being a chameleon.
Okay.
Yeah. So I read the book by Tommy Tedesco.
Oh yeah.
For guitar players only.
Yeah. I read the column on Guitar Player, right?
Yeah. But I read that book when I was really young, and I was very influenced by that. I thought the stories and they were really great. And
okay. And how did you land a gig like playing with Joe Jackson?
How did I learn it?
Yeah. Or how did you get the gig?
Oh, how did I get the gig? I have about, I don't know, 5 or 6 friends who've played with Joe in the past. And Joe sent out an email to probably 20 people, including Steve Vai, to ask them who he should get to play with him.
Okay.
You know, recommendations for a guitar player. And I think his email said something like, somebody who's really good with effects and can sing.
Okay.
I can't remember if there was anything else in there. Anyway, so my friend Andy Ezrin, who played with Joe in the 90s, I think in 98, forwarded me the email, and I saw that some of the people that were CC'd on the email were friends of mine who also played with Joe, and I just wrote them all and asked them for recommendations, and then maybe a week later I got a call from Joe saying, well, a lot of my friends have recommended you. I guess I've got to audition you. That was pretty funny.
Yeah. And was it difficult to audition with Joe?
No, we got along really well right away, and I brought all my gear there because I knew he was interested in effects and what that could do to his music. So I lugged all my stuff up 2 flights in his apartment to his top floor music studio. We hung out for about 3 hours. I learned the song. He gave me 5 songs to learn.
Okay.
I learned them really, really well. Of course, that's what you do as a pro. And we played them a few times. We played some jazz. We played some standards. We just talked a lot and hung out. And then he saw my pedal board after a while. He got interested in that. And he said, "So what's all this then?" And I showed him about 20 sounds, like rapid fire kind of. And he thought it would be good, I guess, because he hired me. So
nice.
Yeah.
And how do you approach the work you do with artists like Joe Jackson on the road compared to what you do on your solo stuff?
Oh, well, you know, with Joe or with anybody like that, you're serving their music, so you have to be a good servant, right? And it's artistic, of course, because I mean, I got hired by Joe to be myself in his band. It's not like he hired me to be anything he wanted. But he is very specific about parts and things like that. So there is you have to have a giving attitude about it, right? And you have to love the music, of course, to do that. So I guess I don't know what the difference is. So I suppose when I'm making my own music, I'm just free to do whatever I want and kind of explore my own brain.
And the specification you got from Joe is like, okay, you have to play this part of those notes, and you do whatever you want with the effects, or does it go as far as, okay, I want you to play this part of guitar with this kind of texture and so on?
It varied a lot.
Okay.
So every situation was different. Some songs he'd have a really specific idea. Like there's a song called A Little Smile. He wanted me to play the violin part, and he wanted me to make my guitar sound like a violin.
You see?
So
right.
I did that. And then there's other songs like we do Steppin' Out, you know that song?
Yeah.
And he said, can you be like a string section on this? I think he remembered something from the audition that I did that sounded like that. It was like a all reverb kind of sound with a volume pedal, and so there's parts that I get to bring my own personality to the table, and there's parts that he really wants a specific thing. Yeah.
And when you play live, having to handle that many effects, is that a challenge for you to get your tone night after night, or now you are able to handle any kind of weird situation you can land on?
That's a great question. I have a switcher, this Boss ES8 switcher, and so I have all my effects plugged into that, and I program each song to have its own patch.
Okay.
So, you know, step on a button and it makes the patch happen. But early on in rehearsal, we figured out that it would take a lot of thinking to remember all the patches forever, because there's many, you know, we learned 45 songs for the tour. So to remember all that and remember all the numbers of the patches was a big job.
Okay.
We'd have to have a sheet with all the patches written on it for each song, and then a set list next to it, and then you're looking at this on the floor, and it looks bad on stage, you know? So I figured out in rehearsal that I had my charts on an iPad for rehearsal, and I figured out that I can make a set list on the iPad, right? So if I was to use the program that I was using to send MIDI to my switcher to switch it for each song, I could just scroll through the songs with a set list. So that's what I'm doing. I have a Bluetooth switcher that switches to the next song in the iPad.
Okay.
And the iPad sends out MIDI to the switcher, and you're on the next song.
Okay, nice. Okay,
it's very convenient, and it's kind of weird having an iPad on stage. I don't really need it or anything. It's just like, I could get an iPad. What's the other one? iPod Touch. Yeah, the little tiny one. Yeah. I think I'm going to get one of those in the future and just like make it more stealth. Okay. So I think it's kind of dorky to have the iPad on stage, but what are you going to do? Yeah.
And so that means that you have one sound for each song, or within one song you may have a different kind of patch?
Every song, every song is different. Some songs have 2 or 3 or 4 patches, and some songs just have one. Okay. Like the old punk stuff, it's just one patch. Okay.
Yeah. And what's your favorite trick to get your tone on stage, because you never know what kind of monitoring you are going to have and so on? Is it difficult? What's your go-to trick to solve any problem you can have?
Wow. Well, on this tour, we're very lucky because we have an in-ear monitor system where we each have our own mix. Okay, so we have our own mixer on the mic stand. So it's the same every night. Okay. And
you have complete control on what you hear.
I don't do anything. I just plug my in-ears into the box, and it sounds the same as it did the night before. Nice. Sound checks take 20 minutes.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Excellent. So let's talk about your solo stuff. So I have your album here. I'm going to put a photo in there. So it's called Loopestra Volume 1. So first you have to tell me what's about this title. Volume 1 I can get. Loopestra, you have to explain.
Loopestra, it's an orchestra of guitar loops.
Okay.
Yes. I've been doing this project for about 8 years. And when I first started, I had a steady band. We were playing at this place, Nightingales, in New York City, 2nd Avenue, 13th Street. And I had a steady, once-a-week gig there playing. And then something happened, and some personnel couldn't make it to the gig, so I started having other people come in and ended up rotating musicians in the lineup. So then that became sort of appealing, because every week if you have a different drummer, and New York is full of famous, really great drummers, right? Then I can kind of get different audiences for each week, because different fans of different drummers and bass players will come out. But the Loopestra is, I use 3 guitar amps. Okay. I split my signal after my pedal board into basically into an A-B switch that sends either to my looper input or to my lead guitar amp, which is in the middle. Okay. So there's the 2 outside amps are for loops, and the one in the middle is for lead guitar playing. Okay. The reason I do that is because, I don't know if you guys have ever noticed this, but when you loop your guitar and then play over it through the same amp, it kind of gets mushy. Yeah. And it sounds kind of shitty, right? You're like, you have all this information in one amp. It's, and if you want your amp to break up a little bit, no good. Yeah. Anyway, so I developed it to the point where I have basically 2 A-B switches. The first A-B switch switches between the lead amplifier and the looper input, and the second A-B switch switches between the 2 stereo inputs for the looper. Okay. Which then goes out to the 2 different amps. Okay. So if I push the second A-B switch, it's either left or right looping. But if I push the first one, it's lead guitar or looping. Okay. And does that mean that when you switch to loop, it starts the looping recording process, or you have to switch then to start the looping process? Okay. It has not been developed to the point where I can make the audio switch and the starting of the loop at the same time. Okay. But really, you don't want that, because you want to be independently able to turn on and off. Exactly. You don't want to always be looping, or you know what I mean? So that means also that you might be playing with one loop on the left side and another loop on the right side. Yes, I call it tri-mono. Okay. because it's not stereo. It's more like a record, really.
Yeah,
If you know, on a lot of records, you'll hear one rhythm guitar on the right and another rhythm guitar on the left. Maybe they're playing the same exact thing, maybe they're not, and then you have something in the middle. That's the lead instrument.
And that's the way you did the record, using the same technique you have alive?
The record is completely live.
Okay.
And we're so excited about me and my partner who of the recording, this guy Bob Stander. We were psyched to be able to capture that live and have it come out so good.
So there is only one guitar player throughout all the record, and that's you, right?
That's me.
Okay,
right.
That's amazing.
Exactly.
Okay. It doesn't sound like that. It sounds much bigger than that, and you don't get to hear the fact that sometimes when people use a loop, you can have something very repetitive, and which can be interesting because there is kind of this hypnotic feel. But sometimes it can get boring, and we don't get to have this kind of feeling in the record. Was it difficult to, or you have to work on your know-how to work on the good loop to do that?
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, the way I do it is I have a click track running with the loop. The reason I do that is because when I play rhythm guitar, I don't want to be the timekeeper. And after probably 2 or 3 years of experimenting with drummers and figuring out what sounds best, so it's really about sound, right? It's not about convenience. This thing, I'm bringing 3 amplifiers to a tiny little gig in New York City. It's not convenient. So I send a click track to me and the drummer, and usually I'll start the song on guitar and start a loop.
Okay.
And the way I play against the click is not always exact. It's not always. It's on purpose behind the beat.
Okay.
And the drummer will hear me doing that, and he knows that he's supposed to play with the click and not with me.
Okay.
So the click is the timekeeper, right? And that creates a feeling which is, to me, unique, is how you would be playing in a real band. When you play, well, I don't know about you guys, but when I play with the drummer, I don't play right with the drummer necessarily. You know, sometimes I'll play very precisely with the drummer, and sometimes I'll play more back, or sometimes I'll push, or, you know. So it gives freedom to make a wide rhythm, which I think is something that's missing in live looping with people who play songs and rhythmic stuff.
Okay.
You know, I'm not talking about ambient looping. That's a whole other style of looping.
Okay. And it's very difficult to categorize your music, because on song like Pushy, it sounds like an experimental version of the Red Hot Chili Peppers. It sounds like that to me. And on New Suit, it has a totally different vibe. So we know, we love to put tag on music. So how do would you qualify your music?
It's live looping with a rotating cast.
Okay.
And, you know, the point of the experiment, this record really is an experiment, and the whole project is an experiment. It's like a science experiment to see if you can get away with this, you know. The whole point of it is that I have a different rhythm section on every song. So on the record that you heard, the first 2 songs are one band, the second 2 songs are another band, and the last 2 songs are another band. The last 2 songs have Clark Gayton playing tuba as the bass. So every vibe is different for each band, and that's sort of the point of it. I don't want it to be categorizable. Okay. You know, it is its own language, just based on what it is.
And regarding your choice of notes, is very unconventional. Did you have to work consciously on that to get out of the dreaded pentatonic box and so on? How do you achieve that?
Oh, wow. Well, I don't know. My first guitar teacher, I guess he recognized that I had a pretty good ear when I was a kid, so he immediately started me with atonal sight singing. Okay. That was like the first thing we did. And he'll apologize to me for it now. Later in life, he thinks it's really strange for him to do that, but it opened up my ears to the possibility of anything over anything. Any note over any chord works, really. I mean, if you want it to, if you believe in it.
And it's very difficult, I think, to find to walk the fine line between taking the people out, but not too out that we feel, okay, this guy is completely nuts, I'm not understanding what he's doing, and you always have the right balance between, okay, creating this tension and resolving it at one point. So we kind of, okay, I know where he tried to go there.
Right. I think I learned that from Schofield. Okay. You know? I listened to Schofield from like 1979 to 1984, and then I had to stop because I loved him so much. I just started to sound like him. By the time I got to Miami, I think I was a bit of a Schofield clone.
Okay.
So yeah, I stopped. But it hurts to stop, though. He's so good. But he has that, kind of balance between blues and outside playing, where he always brings you back, and you feel like you're like it's down home, but he can take it out.
And going back to what you do with the loops, you have in your head, you re-record the loop every time you play it, right? Or is it some pre-recorded stuff you use too?
Nothing pre-recorded.
Okay. So you have some specific ideas for some loops, and some other part are completely improvised?
Yeah, well, they're songs, so I have to know what the key is so I can sing it right. And most of the songs have some sort of structure as far as what the loop is going to be, the first one at least, and how the song goes. So there are things that are in my head that are going to happen before, it's not completely spontaneous.
Okay.
But, I say it's 80% spontaneous guitar-wise.
We have to talk about gear, so tell us, what are your favorite weapon of choice as guitars and effect and amps?
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm a huge semi-hollow fan, and also hollow bodies, but it's hard for me to manage hollow bodies live. But I love the resonance that you can get from that, and low volume feedback I love. So right now I'm playing Fret King guitars. I have a Fret King Elise on the road with Joe, and I think it has less of a block than a 335. It has the back of the guitar between the bridge and the end pin is hollow. Okay. So it gets a really singing, easy to feedback sound. With Joe, we started out with acoustic piano, so we had to play a pretty low volume, and I'm playing a 25 watt 10-inch speaker amp, Super O Tremo Verb. Live, so and I have it set very low. So to have a guitar that will feedback, musically and get really resonant notes sometimes is important. Yeah.
And regarding gain, does it comes usually from the amp, or is it a combination between overdrive, boost, and the amp?
Yeah, I'm all about the pedals. I want my amp clean, and I use Creation Audio Labs Holy Fire. Okay. That's my always-on pedal. Okay. That's the most transparent thing I've ever heard in my life.
So to create your basic overdriven sound, or is it just to give it a color?
It just sounds like an amp, that thing. So my theory is that I have an amp pedal, which is that Holy Fire pedal, and that's sort of the amp in my pedal board. So after the amp is all the time-based delays and modulation and stuff that you would put in an effects loop, right? So it's sort of like my pedal board is set up to be an amp with an effects loop and then go into a clean amp. So that's...
And so
a lot of people do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you described a little bit how you handle the effects with Joe Jackson. So when you play your own stuff, do you have some specific patch when you push a button and it programmed a couple of pedals, or do you have to tap everything by hand and to improvise on the spot?
In my own stuff, I haven't programmed anything, so it's all manual. Yeah.
So you have to run all around your pedal board to switch the right pedal at the right time, and
yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe one day I'll come up with some patches that do things that I normally do, but I don't like to. In the Lupustra, it's different every time with different bass player and drummer. One night I'll have Sean Pelton and Andy Hess, and it's like a soul band. And then the next night I'll have Jojo Mayer and John Davis, and it's electronica. So I can't really decide ahead of time what...
You have to keep the choice, the options open. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. As a word of conclusion, what would be your word of wisdom? Because you have a beard and long hair, so you must be very wise, right? So what would be your word of wisdom to share with musicians to find their own voice?
If it doesn't happen when you're young, then just keep looking for it and don't give up.
Okay.
Just keep playing it and find some organic way to find yourself within the guitar. And if you have heroes on the guitar, you should just get rid of that out of your head as fast as possible. As soon as you know all their licks, Forget them.
Okay.
Move on. You know, I listen to Bill Frisell and Schofield and Matheny and Holdsworth and Jeff Beck and Hendrix and I don't know. Those are all my guitar heroes. Adrian Belew.
Yeah.
Very, very early in my life, and as soon as I kind of had a handle on what I liked about them and what I would integrate from them into me, I kind of try to stop listening to them because I'm busy making my own stuff in my head. Right? I can't be copying. You know, I think that's a danger. Yeah,
Right.
that's people start sounding all the same if they all like the same guitar players, right?
And do you have some trick you use or some gymnastic you use to push yourself in a new direction every time instead of just repeating yourself over and over?
No, I just repeat myself over and over.
That's the best
really.
answer ever.
Not really. I try to come up with like when I'm playing and improvising, and I find myself doing these repetitive things that we all do. We all have things that we lean on, right? As soon as I recognize that I'm doing that, I just play some random shit on the guitar. Like, I'll find some other intervals or some other melody that just push my brain into this other space where I don't know what I'm doing. Okay. And that's, I think, for me, that's the Lupustra thing is on the edge of the cliff that way. Like I like to harmonically make it so that I have no idea what's coming next. And I think that's where I want that band to live. It sort of also makes it, for the bass player and drummer, it forces them to bring their personality and nothing else, right? So they can't have any preconceived idea of what the music's going to be, except that they are who they are.
But you must have sometimes some crazy accident where you are suddenly on the road which is leading nowhere, and you have to stop, you are stuck, and or no, you are always able to find a way to do a double, I don't know, something to up do a nice reception, and here we go.
You find your tricks to get out of things, right? I mean, really, to me, it's all about hearing. Okay. So the ear is king when you're improvising, right? I do have licks, and like everybody, I have things I rely on to get me from point A to point B. And when I'm stuck and I go, oh no, what am I going to play? Then I might go to one of those things to get myself out of something. Or maybe I'll just throw on a dub delay and go, pew, 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 pew. You know, and that always works.
Okay. All right. Well, Teddy, it was great to be able to talk to you. So thanks a lot for that. And I wish you all the best for the rest of the tour with Joe Jackson. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pierre. That was fun. See you guys.